My name is Melissa Foster-Reitz, and I served in Ecuador, and I served from 2002 to 2004. But my main work ended up being that the women came to me and asked if I would help with a women's group. They said they had a very small women's group, but that they didn't really know how to expand. They didn't really know what to do, like how to earn money, and that sort of thing. And they knit like amazing, and I was a knitter, so I would sit out with them and knit. And so eventually they came up with this idea to sell their goods, and for me to help them find styles and things that would sell. Yeah, they'd walk to the pop-up fields, and they had these little bags that they'd put their knitting goods in, but they knit all the time, and that was how it was when I got there. And I knit differently than they did, and so they kept trying to teach me how to knit the way they knit, because I thought I could be faster that way. And I was like, I will never be fast like you. I've been knitting for like 4 years, and you've been knitting for your entire life. Someone to organize, so I helped them with the organization. I helped them try to figure out how to, have a treasurer, how to have some leadership. But it was really hard. It was hard because they have their way of doing things that they've had for their whole life, and I have my way of doing things that I've had for my whole life. So I think ultimately the project for me was less about the goods and more about the relationships. I mean, so many of the women just became just really dear to me because they taught me a lot about how to be a mother, because when I first started Peace Corps, I was like, no kids, never gonna have kids. And by the time my end of service came, I was really ready to kind of settle down and start a family. They were just very selfless, so many of them with their children, and so giving and kind, and their kids went everywhere with them. It was my first introduction to breastfeeding, to more attachment parenting of having your baby on you all the time. It was just an introduction to so many things that have become very important to me in my life. And I hope that they got something from me. I don't know what they would say, but I think that the relationship that I formed with them was my project. At the end of my service, they bought me like a full indigenous outfit. So they were like, Melissa, we want to meet you up at your house, and it was all hush hush, and they'd been very secretive and kind of weird for like a month before I was supposed to leave. And so they bought me this head to toe dress, which to me meant so much, to think that they wanted me to dress like them, because I know that culturally that's something that's very sacred, especially in this community. Like, their hats, their whole garb is very sacred to them. So, and they bought me these shoes that were like twice as big as my feet, because they were convinced that I must have huge feet because I was so tall, because most of them were about like 4'9", 4'10". And it was hilarious. I mean, these shoes were like clown shoes. And they were like, oh, Melissa, we thought you had like much larger feet. So they I don't know, their open arms was it just meant the world to me. But that to me meant that, I didn't accomplish numbers or this or that, but I had really had, I think, a good impact on living there, and I think I made a good impression on what an American is. And I don't know, that was kind of their like, we loved you and you did good by us. That's the message that I got from them doing that for me. But those shoes, I still have those shoes too, and they just crack me up every time.
You don't happen to have a picture of them, or that?
I do. I actually have a picture of us all together.
What a great picture, and they all have such pleasant expressions on their face.
They were like that all the time.
Wow.
It kind of put stuff into perspective too about, what you get worked up about.
Yeah.
This is Gray, and this is Fen. We were in Ecuador in 2002 to 2004, and we were stationed in southern Andes in a little village called Sarguro. Well, first of all, our program director, we were in natural resources, our program director, Francisco Garces, was one of the best people I'd ever met down there. He was just so energetic, so just amazing, and just really loved the work he was into. And the one memory I have of him was he came down for a site visit to our village, and we get in the car with him, and he's like, hold on a second, hold on, and he cues up the radio, the tape player, and he starts playing "We Are the Champions" by Queen as loud as he can, and we're driving through the streets of Saraguro onto the Pan American Highway, just blasting "We Are the Champions," and he's singing along, and
he tells us that we are the champions.
Yeah, and then he turns it.
We're doing such good work.
Yes, then he turns it down. He says, "You know, we really are the champions. We're doing the natural resource work that needs to be done, and you guys need to know that we are the champions." And that just, just made us so much more inspired to do the work that we were doing. And he was just such a great guy.
He was also a mad orchid lover, and he was a little crazy the way he'd drive, and we'd be cruising really fast, and all of a sudden he'd see a landslide where some orchids had fallen down into the road, and he'd like screech over to the side and run out, grab the orchids, toss them in the back of his trunk of the car, and then we'd head off, and
off to the next spot.
We learned a ton from him that I still use all the time. Things like starting small and
so start slow and start small.
Yeah.
He didn't really want us to get into any big projects for almost a year.
Yeah.
He thought just needed that first year to get to know the politics, get to know the people, get to know what they're interested in, and not just jump into something just to feel like busy work. He wanted the things that we do to last, and he wasn't worried if we started slow. And
my name is Jill Dumbald, and I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Ecuador from 2004 to 2006. It's an interesting thing about Ecuador is that part of the local cuisine is guinea pig. So we ate a lot of guinea pig there, and I do remember in the group, in our training, the first time they showed up with a plate full of guinea pig, the looks on our faces, but I'll tell you, it's a very delicious meal, and definitely an interesting part of being in South America.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Funch. I served in Ecuador from 2006 to 2008. I was a rural public health volunteer in a little town called La Victoria, which was about an hour and a half from the Peruvian border in the southern part of Ecuador. And I loved it there. I'm actually going back this summer and I can't wait. But them. So I'm going to kind of tell one that's about language, and which most of us had a moment when we had a faux pas with our language. So Spanish is spoken in Ecuador, and I spent about a year telling people that I spent a lot of time down. What I was saying was I went to the bridge, because there was a bridge near my town that everybody hung out at. And in Spanish, bridge is el puente. But I kept calling it La Puente, and thinking that it was grammar. People would like roll their eyes or look at me funny, and I was like, yes, it's grammar. Until I'd been there about a year, and somebody finally was like, Elizabeth, you cannot say La Puente. And I was like, I know it's grammar. He's like, no. La Puente was the name of the biggest brothel in the next town over. So I had spent a long time telling people I was spending a lot of time in this brothel rather than telling them that I was spending a lot of time at this bridge. You can bet I never made that mistake again. So yes, it was a grammar error too. Like I was saying it incorrectly, but bigger than that was it was also the name of a place I didn't want to be. Anyway, but I loved serving in Ecuador, and I'm really excited about going back.